Why can't I share this thing? Okay, testing. All right, seems like I am live, even though I'm not super ready. Okay, so basically the old way to do serverless functions and serverless app development on Netlify was using netlify-lambda. And I'm just going to point you to the example repo that we have. And this is basically our demo repo using create React app and netlify-lambda. And all this does is it's the standard create React app, right? And we've added in Netlify functions next to it, and you can run it locally. So I'm just going to run yarn start, and yarn start runs in parallel both React scripts, which is create React app, and then as well as netlify-lambda, and it's serving the source/lambda file. This is down in here. And so this is the app. We've only modified it to add 2 buttons. One calls the lambda function, and I'm going to pull up the console here. So one calls the lambda function, and it returns a message, hello world. And it has the URL of 3000.netlify/function/hello. And you can see how that is set up over here. It's a simple event context callback signature. And it says JSON and stringify hello world. And we run Babel on it. So here I'm just showing how you can use object spread. The other thing to note with netlify-lambda is, so we have to run these things in parallel, right? And so we have to install runp, and then we run this and this in parallel. And we do the same thing for build. The other thing to note is that I'm using relative references. So inside of my app.json, when I fetch, I just say /.netlify functions. And this works on localhost, right? Hello. This works on localhost. But actually, actually the port of the function server, I can't see it here, but the port on the function server actually runs on 8888 or 9000. So this is the actual port. So what's happening here, right? What's happening here is this has a port, and this is on 9000, and this has a port, this is on 3000, and we need to proxy this port over to this port, right? To access it as though it were the same app, because when it gets deployed, that's exactly what it will do. They will deploy the serverless function on the same exact domain as the front end script, or front end app. Whereas in here, if I'm on localhost 3000, and in here I'm on localhost 9000, that's going to cause a CORS issue. So I don't even know if it's HTTPS or not. I don't think so. Right, it's HTTP. So now if I go back, hopefully run into the CORS issues. So that's a CORS issue, right? Because I'm trying to access from 3000, trying to access 9000. And so the way to get around that is to proxy this thing and rewrite the function from localhost 9000 to 3000. And that's what we have set up with setup proxy. And this is how we basically say, all right, drop the 9000 and take any function that matches this and proxy it to HTTP localhost 9000. And so that's how it works, and that's why in the Netlify Lambda repo, we've had to had proxying solutions for all of the dev servers that people use. So if you use Create React App, you have that setup proxy magic file. If you use Gatsby, you have to set up your Webpack config. If you use Nux, Vue, CLI, Angular, all of this stuff, right? Like we have all these instructions. It's kind of clunky, but really, like if it's a single file that you can copy and paste, not the worst issue in the world. Let's talk about other issues that we want to address. So some other issues, for example, are, let me just fix this because this bothers me. So this should work. Okay. And then this is a very simple, fuck. Okay, hang on. Okay, so this is source code, right? And what netlify-lambda actually does is it compiles the source code and bundles it into these these output functions, which are just bundles, right? So it's trivial for something like this, like a hello world, right? That's nothing. But it starts to matter when we start to use libraries. So here I've installed node fetch, and that's a library that I've installed as a dependency on my main folder. And it bundles it up into this function, which is then deployed for me. So I can use node fetch in here, right? And how it decide and how netlify-lambda decides what the output, what the source and target is. So the source is specified in here, serve source/lambda, and the output is this magic folder, also called lambda, because that's not confusing. But I've just defined it here in my netlify.toml file. So that's what it's for. I like to tell people to just build lambda, for example. And that seems a lot clearer, in that this is a build output, and you're not supposed to confuse them. Definitely don't make them the same folder. Although we will throw a warning if that happens, and we just won't do it for you. So have no fear of overriding your existing folders. Okay, so so that's netlify-lambda. But so kind of the next level in terms of the problems that we want to solve. So like, this is the fine workflow, and we've worked with this for over a year using Netlify and developing functions locally. And remember, we're always very focused on the local dev experience, right? If you want to just deploy and pray that your stuff works, by all means, go ahead. There will be no issues for you here. So what we want to do is, for example, if I have an app and I have a site, and I'm going to take any random site. I have a lot of stupid demo sites now because I've been testing all this stuff. And I want to add a build environment variable. So I want to say, for example, my super secret key, and it's potato, right? And I save that. Now this will be available to me in my functions. So when I deploy in my Netlify functions, I'll be able to use this. But obviously, when I'm in local dev, I don't have access to that, right? So if I want to say secret, well, ideally you want to put it in something like this, right? Where it's like secret, and then process and my super secret key. So this, however, doesn't exist on local dev, right? So then you have to do something like a .env file down in here, and then go my super secret key equals to potato head local secret whatever, and then you require it, and you work off of that. And then you have to think about, and that's fine, and that's a fine workflow. Then you have to think about redirects. So with Netlify, you can use a redirects file down in here, and it's really a mapping to and from into whatever your folder is. So for example, redirects. Let me just say Google Splat. Yes. Okay, so this is a redirect from anything /Google to google.com/query whatever. And so how do you test this? We don't really have a solution for that, right? And so there's just like all of these discrepancies. In fact, we actually had a user of Netlify actually make a clone of netlify-lambda and start to implement the rest of the Netlify features. So his was called Netlify local, and he was like, all right, we want to do redirects, we're going to do headers, we're going to do lambda router, all this fancy stuff. We started to incorporate some of these functionality, but basically we basically got to a point where you're building all this manually yourself, setting up all this configuration. This redirect stuff isn't even possible. And we're just like, what's a better workflow for that? And I think that's the context with which, like, you have this weird file, you have this weird reliance on this dependency that's also commingled with the rest of your app, and you have the need to bundle, which maybe you don't need to bundle. And so there's all these, and then there's all the environment variables as well. And there's other stuff I haven't showed you yet. So but this is the context, right? That I want people to understand why why they might be even interested in using netlify-lambda, because of all this setup and configuration. Okay, so now let's actually migrate to netlify-lambda. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this dev environment. It looks like I have a site linked up. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this build output. I am done with this, I think. I'm going to get rid of netlify-lambda's start script. So it's just his start. It just says build. Okay, whatever. I don't even think I need that. Okay, and I think that's right. Again, this is completely unrehearsed, so I don't know. I can delete this setup proxy magic file, which is required by Query React app to do proxying, because we're no longer proxy. And then I think I need to do some other things. So now there's this build output folder. I don't want that anymore. It will come back later on. We'll talk about that. And let's just call this functions, just to be clear. And so these are the functions that we want to serve. And I think that's good. And we'll call these functions as well. So now we're just pointing to the functions folder that we're serving. So that's a one-on-one over there. Okay, for Netlify Dev, I've aliased all this Netlify stuff. So if you want to see my aliases, it's all the way down in here. Where's the alias? Where's it? Yeah, so I have ND for Netlify Dev, NDL for Netlify Dev Live, NFC, and NDX. So that's what happens if you see me typing stuff and stuff just works. Okay, so Netlify Dev, what we do, right, is we will detect what your generator is. So your generator is detected to be create React app. So it's just known to be on port 3000. And we'll proxy that to port 8888. So instead of proxying the functions to the dev server of the front end, we're now proxying the dev server and the functions to a single point, which we control. Create React app has helpfully wiped it out here, but there's a message here pointing you to localhost 8888. They really need to get rid of that for Create React app, because this is super annoying. I can't scroll up. All right, so and then this function does not work. Let's see. So one of the things right now, we're not using Webpack or Babel. Right now we're using raw node, and so now we have to transpose our functions to work with regular node. So yeah, you can't use the export syntax you use. You have to use module exports, and here I've just used mod exports. So this is secretly module exports, but that's a global anyway, so I just don't use that. And so what else should I show you? And then this one, import export, also does not work. So let's show you the error. Blah. And here it's the import keyword. So what you got to do is const fetch equals require node fetch, and then exports equals handler equals. I like that asynchronous. I don't know. So again, this is unrehearsed. I actually don't know if this will resolve, but let's just check it out. Huh. Yeah, that works. All right, so I have my node fetch dependency up in this main dependency in my package JSON. But really, we don't need that. Like, we can actually, so let me just close all this. So here, so you can see how this is fundamentally simpler. Oh, and also my redirects should work. Again, this is untested. Potato. I just really like potatoes. Is my redirect working? I don't know. It is not working. Okay, so this probably has a. Is this the way to do it? I don't know. Netlify. Slash. I need a splat. A placeholder. Yeah. I thought this works. Why doesn't it work? Because of spaces. You're really annoyed if it's because of spaces. Okay, this should work. I don't know. Okay. So in order for this to work, we for the redirects to work, Netlify Dev has no idea that you have a public folder. We should probably fix that. I think we can fix it. I'm actually not quite sure why this does not work. But anyway, so we can have a dev block, and I think we call it publish, and I think we direct the publish folder to this file. So this is a really misnomery name, because the publish folder is this thing that we want to build for the front end. But here we want to point it to the static file directory for development mode. Anyway, long story short, Netlify Dev stores a few core concepts that we need to work on the communication of. And that's the message here for localhost 8088. All right, so localhost 8088, and let's Google potato. Right, so you see that redirect happening over there? That's what happens with, oh, And so now if I put, I like this, 200. I think I have to restart it. Let me restart this thing and show you its key. I'm also going to open the site that's linked to it. Netlify open. So I have linked to a site, right? And I'm going to inject some environment variables for you just to show you. Okay, so all right, so this is running, right? And now I've put a 200 on this redirect. So I can Google potato, and it still does not show me anything. But there's a way to make it hide this google.com identifier. I'm not really sure how exactly that works, but it would have been a more impressive demo if I got that to work. Doesn't really matter. It's just for showing off. All right, so here is a build environment variable. Hello, what did I say? My super secret key. Potato head. Okay, so now if I want to access my super secret key, I can do that. So for convenience sake, I'm just going to show you here. Obviously, this is not what you do in practice, but whatever. And so I think I have to. Oh yeah, look at that proxy. It's a nice log. I should probably put some branding on it. Okay, so now that I've entered that in on my site, right? It's going to inject the build setting with that key. You see that? And so now when I run this, town, you see that secret? That's the exact same secret that I injected on my deployment side. So my production environment is being pulled down into my local dev environment, and I can use it to make whatever, to test whatever server functionality I want, and then when I deploy it, it will be the exact same as in my local production. So we've got functions, we've got redirects, we've got not sure what other stuff I can show off in this demo. Okay, so one of the things that we want to move on to is that functions can actually be a folder of functions. So sometimes we want to have multiple files. So one of the main things that we lose with a setup like this with no bundling is that we want to. Sometimes I want to write, multiple files so that I don't have like a giant function file. Okay, so how that works? We're going to use the templating feature. You don't have to use it. You can just write them like this, and so it works like this. You have to name it. You have to give it a folder name, and then whatever the corresponding exact same name is inside. That's the root of the function, and then you can require whatever you want as a sibling. Sibling.js module exports equals to R, and I can import it here. Netlify Dev. Right, so I haven't used my templating function yet, and so I just want to show you a function folder as compared to a single file. And a function folder has other. You see that injection of the build setting? I'm really bad at this demoing thing. What's going on? Why don't you work? Cannot find module sibling. Why not? It's a relative. Right, so and then you have hello Netlify Dev, and that's the sibling folder. So this is useful, obviously, for large functions. And also, the other thing that you might want to do is you might want to install some dependencies, right? So cd functions hello, and you can do, and instead of relying on the main dependency all the way up here in the main package folder, right? In the main project folder, you can just locate your dependencies down in here, right? You add a package JSON, and now I want to say random user, I think. I think it's the repo that you want. Random user. Okay, this works. All right, so npm I random user. And so down in here, I can just say const random user, you require user. Obviously, my code is not best. Simple. Okay. This is promise based, so I'm just going to convert this to promise. And it was as easy as that. What do you know? Yeah. You know what I mean. Birds flying high, you know what I mean. Sun in the sky. All right, so down in here, I have my random user, and it's scoped to this function, right? It doesn't leak out to the main app. And this can be useful for importing other people's code and having different versions of code, just whatever you want, really. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so now I'm back here, and I'm going to run Netlify Dev. That's in localhost 88.88.88.88.88. And I am hopefully going to have this work. Hey, where's the user? Oh, it's in hello. This is an error. Random user is not defined. Oh, of course. You're probably yelling at me from wherever you're watching. Sorry, I'm bad at this, but you get what you get. So these are all the user data, right? That we got from that API. And again, it's just to show you that you can have scoped, you have node modules within a function, you can have function folder. In fact, this is the way that everyone should probably work from the get-go so that you can incrementally upgrade. And in fact, we like this so much that we've sort of built it in for you. So right now, we have this other thing called Netlify functions. Create. It's not technically a part of Netlify Dev, but you're going to use it together so much. And the idea is to just make both the onboarding of new developers to serverless functions easier, as well as for power users, right? To just scaffold something that they use a lot. So I'm gonna just set like a really simple token hider. This is apparently the most popular function example that people want. We can name it whatever we want. There's a default token hider, but we're just going to call it token ninja. And it's going to create our folder for us, and it's going to install the dependencies that are required based on Axios and QS are needed here. And these are all the common needs that we need. It also wants process.env API token and API URL to be defined in our build environment variables, right? And it tells you right in there. So you can set them down in here. Provides a really helpful link. I'm pretty proud of myself for making that happen. Let's close the tabs to the right. Okay. So here I have API URL. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing it a demo. Right? Okay. Right. So now, when we run this, I mean, you know it's going to work, right? You know it's going to work. So we can see all these build settings that are being injected into our dev environment, and so this is being run as though it were in production. And the token ninja is going to fail because it uses export. I need to fix that. It uses import. Right. Okay. So it's got all these. It's got this. Because I requested google.com. But basically, like, you can scaffold functions, right? And so then it starts to get interesting when you start to combine this with other functionality that we have. And so let's say we want a database, right? So netlify functions create, and we want a database. I'm just going to go straight for the GraphQL backend, but we have another CRUD REST API as well. And so we can just install dependencies, but then we can also install add-ons. And we can, and the add-on works with a partner, like a third-party thing, and injects their environment variables as well as the build settings that you have, right? And it also offers to run a setup script. So down in here, I have a setup script, sync schema. And that basically just looks at schema.graphql and uploads that to their server, which is expecting something like that. So I'm just going to say here, Netlify Dev Demo Boolean, and say yes. And so now it's uploading that schema. And now when we run Netlify Dev again, we'll have this function set up and working locally with the backend set up by our partner. So the more add-ons we add, right now we basically just have this, but the more add-ons we have, the more powerful this is going to be. So yeah, I mean, so there you have zero setup. This is all from a previous run. Don't look at that. So this is the demo that we just did, right? Zero setup, no messing around with environment variables, and everything just works locally. And when you push it, you know that it will work in dev as well, in production as well. And so that's kind of the promise of Netlify Dev, that you have all this working locally. You can scaffold out your functions really quickly. If you need to, let's say I need to resync my schema and I need to add something, for example, like something I forgot, int, whatever, and I need to run this again, right? And to execute scripts within that environment, you run netlify dev exec. I have that alias to MDX. And I'm just going to go into functions, Fauna GraphQL, sync schema. Right, so just drill down into this file, and I want to execute this file with the Netlify dev environment. So I want to execute this with all the process.m secrets that are required. Right, so I can do that. It's kind of like almost like a remote execution, except I'm going to the server, pulling down my secrets, and then remote executing it on my laptop. And so now when I run this, yeah, actually that works. So now when I run all this again, I will have synced my schema with the new field, something I forgot. You can see that down in here. Right, so pretty comprehensive set of tools for doing all that local stuff. There's definitely stuff that we don't have, and I encourage people to report their use cases and so on in the GitHub repo, and that's netlify/netlify dev plugin. The top request right now is this really important one, which is special environment settings just for devs. So obviously people don't want to test in production all the time with their production keys. That seems like a really bad idea. So we need a story for testing with local dev API keys, and that's probably going to be something here with the dev block, where we'll say like dev dot I don't know environment, and we'll have like API e equals to potato test, something like that. And then I think the last thing I want to cover is that we have some other blocks in Netlify Dev. Okay, so and this runs with the whole idea of detectors. And so something I've kind of gone really fast over is how we know to proxy localhost 3000 to localhost 8888. And that runs on proxy on detector logic. So go in here, source, detectors. We have all these detectors for popular dev server projects. That's if you need a dev server. Obviously, if you're working on a vanilla HTML, CSS project, then we'll just run a static server for you. But most people are going to use a dev server. And in here, we've just basically hard-coded what their proxy, the original port is. And we'll say, all right, we'll proxy that to 8888. And I think that's about it. And then we'll look for scripts that start with the start script, serve script, or run script, or they'll have something like React-script start in them. So in here, it matches start. I'm going to just run that, and I'm just going to ignore everything else. But even if I did not have any of these scripts, so even if I did not have any of these scripts, Netlify Dev still works. And that's just by going through the dependencies and looking for something. You see, so it's here. It tells you that it's not running with the scripts. And then look for a dependency. And if you have React scripts, then obviously you can run React scripts, and it just runs that. And so that's what's going on down there in the detector. This obviously means that if you have some sort of weird custom setup config where you're not running 3000 on your port 3000, or if you have a project that we don't have a detector for, then you're going to have to manually set up these ports, right? So the ports will listen on, as well as the static folder where your redirect is living. This is misconfigured. This probably should be public. That's all part of what the dev block tells you to do. Every single field is optional. And again, we have a naming issue between publish and dist, and these are all the same concepts, but they're different concepts from this build thing. It's a whole mess, but whatever, we'll fix that. So what you want to do in that situation is, let me think about the dev block. So we have an example dev block here. You can set the port, right? Or you can set the command to run. We try to detect these for you, but obviously you can override it with these commands, and that's what they're for. I have an explanation here. I know it's a little bit wordy, but try to get through it if you need it. Most people, the whole intention and the whole experience is that it should be 0 config for all these, for everyone, and so that's the main idea. And so the last bit is, okay, so I know I said that twice already. So, but we've covered a lot, right? We've covered add-ons, we've covered environment variables and all that. The last bit is these function builders and relationship with netlify-lambda. And this is the newest and honestly like it's the newest bit, right? So the situation comes in like, hey, that's really neat. It's fast. If I don't bundle, it's really neat. But maybe I want to bundle. Maybe I want to run Babel as a preset. Maybe I want to add TypeScript, right, to my functions. How does that work if I'm just serving unbundled, untransformed functions with no build step? And function builders are the solution. So function builders take the same detection logic as netlify-lambda. All right, so I'm just going to drastically simplify this because we're about to discuss something pretty heavy. Throw it all out. Throw this out. All right, and let's make this TypeScript, and then let's now I'm using let's say I want something like this, right? Like I want to use modern JS import export syntax. I want to use TypeScript, so this is Jesus, maybe not the best. Whatever. Like I'm kind of belaboring the point here, but like let's just make it super obvious that this is TypeScript, right? There's actually really good types for the event and context types. So definitely go check that out. Someone definitely maintains that. But basically, I want to say, all right, I want to work with TypeScript. I want to use import export syntax. I want to run Elm. I want to run whatever, right? And so I need a build step for functions. I can't just serve the raw functions. And so what that implies, what that means, is that you need a source and you need an output. Right? I have a function source here, and let's just say I have a functions build, right? And I need to transform from here to here, and I'll just call this functions build, right? And that's the one that we serve after we build. So that's where Netlify Lambda comes back. You thought you were done with them. You're not. Right, you're on add the Netlify. Right. But you can bring your own tooling, right? You can bring types TSC. You can bring your own tooling. We just have a custom built one for you, and that by default outputs multiple files just for Netlify Lambda, then just for functions creation. So Netlify Lambda, what we'll do is we'll point this. So we'll have a script called build functions, and it'll just be like Netlify Lambda serve build functions source. That work? It's not work. Okay. So I have a script called like build FNS. Doesn't really matter. And it's going to build from function source to the functions built. I think I need some extra config to get the TypeScript working. So let me figure out what that is. Great, because I know I've documented it because I maintain the docs. There we go. I need a Babel RC file. Oh, types node and types AWS Lambda. Yeah, we're not going to need this right now, but just know it's there. I don't think I need this. Whatever. We'll deal with it if it doesn't work. Okay, so I have a Babel RC file. And let's just run a test build So let's just say yarn build fns, right? And that outputs the build format with types stripped out. And so our goal with Netlify Lambda is to support this, because that's kind of that's the same workflow that you used to have, except that you took the responsibility of running your dev server and your functions server separately and in parallel with like something like run p. And so now what we really want to do is run this for you alongside of Netlify Dev, even though you don't have that set up for you. So it's just really easy to install Netlify Dev or some other tooling to build your functions to source and then serve that function. Anyway, long story short, if I run nd now, it's gonna serve create React app, React scripts, and it's also gonna serve from functions built. And this hello endpoint should work. What if I called? Hello endpoint does not work. Regenerator runtime is not defined. Okay. So this is a Babel thing, not really an issue for us. Let's see if honestly, I don't think I need this plugins. Be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But you get the idea, right? So let me just show you. Like even without, so the point is, even without running this script physically, right? I have nothing here, and I'm just typing netlify dev. It's running React scripts, which are just like a hidden, I don't have a script for, and it's running this netlify lambda build function source thing, and that's why I have my build function showing up, even though I just deleted it just now. Yeah, that's the full Netlify dev story. That's what we have. Obviously, a lot more stupid Babel thing. Yeah, I need to figure that out. But honestly, that's a Babel thing, and it's nothing to do with Netlify dev. Yeah, so that's the full story, and hopefully this is a good intro of the state of things. Definitely don't expect this to be static. We're always going to improve the developer experience. In particular, I really hate this name conflict thing. We need to get rid of that, and the local dev environment variables. But yeah, like if you think that this is worthwhile, let me know. Any ideas, comments, issues, file them. Hopefully the distinction between Netlify Dev and Netlify Lambda is very clear. I've also written it up down in here between Netlify Lambda and Netlify Dev. And the whole goal is to just make local dev a lot easier for serverless function development. Okay, cool. I think I've said enough. Thank you.